to your existing middleware? Is it tightly coupled to your existing middleware today?
See, it is not tightly coupled, like Ashwin was trying to explain. Maybe quite some time back, long ago, we had a couple of implementations where we were directly interfacing with the third-party application from the UI layer. But what happens is most of the banking applications, your security aspects become more important. So that is where, and since all of that is handled at our middleware level, okay, that is where invariably most of the applications that we build or that we've deployed anywhere else go through our middleware layer and then interface into the external applications. But technically, it is feasible to interface directly from the experience layer.
Okay, so in short, it has not been done till now, but you're saying it requires some sort of a POC, or it can be done where you can integrate to a different engagement layer on top of the core banking services.
Yeah, but you would be compromising or sacrificing quite a few security aspects, which comes out of the box in Appzillon. I mean, instead of that, what I would say is you could rather use Appzillon as a pass-through layer and still take benefit of those features.
Right. So you're saying, Appzillon has a backend or a middleware where you store your, user credentials, entitlements, and all those things. The UX is tightly coupled to those functionalities in the middleware today, and that's what you're.
No. So the user management entitlements is entirely optional. Okay, it comes as a platform. You can choose to use it or not use it, because depending on the application that you're building using the platform, you may want to do the user management outside elsewhere. For example, if you're building an application which is like a B2B application for an organization, most likely you will be interfacing with a LDAP or something, or Active Directory, in which case you will not use Appzillon user management and entitlements module at all, right? What I am referring to is the kind of other security mechanism that you have, and when we go into the next set of slides, you will see there is encryption, there is token exchange, there are other stuff which ensures the communication between the experience layer and the middleware is safe. So those are the things which is again configuration can be switched on and off. But if you are obviously doing it directly from the experience layer to a third party, then you will not be having those features enabled. So that is what I meant by that. Okay. When these features will not be used. Yeah.
Understood.
Okay.
Quick question around the massaging part that was mentioned. So what I want to understand is that it's massaging only, when we say massaging, does it mean only mapping to the end format, or is it enrichment also? Any kind of enrichment also possible, or only massaging mapping to the specific format like ISO or any other?
Sorry, I didn't catch your name. What was the name? Sorry.
Yeah, hi, this is Tarun.
Yeah. Tarun, it works both ways. You can do massaging as well as enrichment. So enrichment can be done on the client side as well as on the server side. So for example, I mean, just to give you a use case. So let's say the core banking does not have mobile friendly APIs. And when I do a query, let's say it gives me a lot of unnecessary fields response as well. So once I receive the response, I can actually tailor make it to make it more friendlier as part of my middleware UI layer, where I can get the response and then manipulate using JavaScript and then show only what is required.
Okay. And the vice versa, while pushing the data, can any enrichment be done?
Yeah, both ways, both ways. By
Okay.
pushing the data as well as when I get the data back, I can do enrichment, transformation, anything that is required.
Okay. So, say a scenario where I'm calling an entitlement engine, getting the data, and then massaging the data or adding the data from the channel with the entitlement, and then pushing the data. So that could also be possible. So
Absolutely,
basically, two interactions.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any
Ashwin,
other?
hi, this is Prashant. One quick question. So you talked about supporting REST APIs. So do you cater to both synchronous and asynchronous response? Both of them are can be consumed by the front end layer.
Yeah. Kumar, would you want to step in here?
No, currently we support only the synchronous response, and asynchronous response, if we have to support across, it has to be we have to use the push notification to intimate and then obtain the response. Currently, the socket support is getting added as part of the roadmap.
Okay, because okay, so like then my next question will be, so suppose the backend system, how do you let's say insulate the client layer from a late response from the backend system?
No, as I mentioned, that currently that what we support is only the synchronous response, and as the application layer, the necessary error handling has to be happened. And currently we don't support the asynchronous way of responding back to the channel layer. Obviously, you can write a custom. The Appzillon server also provides to write a custom Java code to extend the other functionalities as well, which the developer can do. Once we enable the socket support in the whole framework, you will be able to send a asynchronous response back from the server to the client.
Okay, thanks, Kumar.
Ashwin, Ravi here. Just one question. So we've seen requirements where banks have said that they would want. So let's say we have an application, enterprise level application, which has many functionalities, but to the certain users they want to have only some certain features to be accessed. So can I use this Appzillon ID? So let's say if I have some 10 features, an enterprise application with 10 features, but certain users in the bank need not access this particular application. So, and say for currently I'm not able to build access control in that manner, then can I have parallelly Appzillon deployed and using your this ID develop a small app confined to those 2 or 3 features and users accessing that, so that way I can differentiate the users accessing the enterprise application as well as accessing Appzillon who will have limited access only to those features?
The user entitlements anyways allows you to do that. So for example, let me give you a use case. So I have a, let's say, consumer banking application, which is a mobile banking for retail customers. And let's say I have different customer groups. I could have normal customers. I could have, HNI customers and so on. So based on the customer segment, I want only specific set of screens to be allowed access to. Isn't your question is very similar to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I understand it right. Yeah. So basically, there are 2 ways to do it. One is when the customer logs in, either the back office gives me the role of, not the role, the classification of the customer, whether it's a normal customer or is it an HNI customer and so on. And based on that, in my Appzillon admin module, what I do is I do a mapping upfront. So if it is a normal customer, he's allowed 10 screens out of the 15. And if it's a HNI customer, he has those extra 5 screens also. So my menu itself can be dynamic, wherein I can control what should be the list of items being shown in the menu, depending on the segment of the customer. Now the segment again can be coming from a back office system, option 1. Option 2, if it's not there as part of the back office system, we can maintain as part of the Appzillon admin.
Okay.
Okay. And just not the screens, like I said earlier, it can also go down to an interface and a control level. When it's an interface and a control level, now in a screen, let's say you have multiple sections. Let's say you have 3 sections in the screen, and each section is, let's say, talking to a different interface. For example, it could be a dashboard kind of a screen where you have 3 sections and each section is talking to a different interface. I can even bring in control at an interface level, and just not interface, including the buttons which you use to authorize. For example, in a maker checker scenario, you don't have to develop 2 distinct screens. It can be a single screen, and based on the role, the authorized buttons would be enabled or not, depending on what role the end user has. So if it's a maker, he will not have the authorized button itself coming up for him, or it can be grayed out. If it is a checker, then it is authorized button comes up for him. So the control is still the button level, just not at the screen. It's all the way down granular.
So this will be only this definition or this control is only at role level, or it can be even, because even maybe there are multiple users belonging to that role. So if
Can
I
you be a
want to have
little
a
louder? Sorry.
what I meant to say is the are users, if we have a need to control certain users belonging to that role, maybe based on a department or something, can we do that also?
Yeah, so basically you're trying to group the users, so that
Correct.
also can be facilitated.
Okay.
Ashwin, this is Vishwa here. I have a question.
Sure.
So the apps that are being built on Appzillon, will it always be independent, or can it be embedded into a larger enterprise suite of products? Let's say, if I just have to take an example here, so can let's say I build a small app on Appzillon. Can it be embedded onto, let's say, Finacle UBS? So that the experience given to the end user is seamless, like everything looks packaged together. He doesn't have to log in separately to Appzillon, or is he required to log in separately to Appzillon?
Are we looking at a parent app concept where you have a wrapper built on top, something on similar lines is what we support? Mm-hmm. Kumar, if you want to elaborate on that particular answer.
Yeah, we have done the similar kind of interfaces where there is some portion of an application is developed using other framework, and wherever there is a need is there, some portion of the application has been created using Appzillon. So in this case, you can pass the user information to our application. From there, we can take over. That's still possible. It all depends on how you want to integrate these 2 apps.
Okay.
I hope it's only for the web thing, and obviously it can be done in a different ways, but it's still possible.
Okay.
Any other likely questions before we move on to the
Ashwin, this is Anand. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah. As we understand, it's a multi-tier architecture application. Okay, and we said, and UI and the server layer can be decoupled and everything, right? So in that case, are we still need to rely on the web server? So when things can be decoupled, okay. So are we still? I'm gonna rely on the web server to deploy the application, or I can go with an even lightweight application, lightweight servers which are available like Node and everything.
See, in terms of deployment, 1 minute, let me just go there. You generally have a web server only to configure the reverse proxy, and the application is typically hosted on the application server. I mean, JBoss, WebLogic, even Tomcat for that matter. So your question is without.
Sorry, just want to correct it. Okay, is it still need an application server? Okay, in order to deploy the Appzillon application, or I can still go with the Node servers. when it is decoupleable?
Kumar?
No. We need application server. We need application server is required because our components are purely developed on a GUI framework. We need application server required on to deploy our web component and the Appzillon server.
I think the question here was when it was if it, let's say they don't use our middleware and they're trying to directly from the UI UX layer, they're trying to connect to their own this thing.
Even our web container is also an application component that needs to be hosted on one of the application server.
Okay. So in that case, I think are we having a tight coupling with our Appzillon data model?
Not really. Only the UI components are exist there, and there are few Java components are there. That's the reason why we need to have an application server has to be there. There is no data model coupling in the web component portion of it.
So how about the decouplings between the data model and app server? Sorry, Appzillon servers, where I think assumed entitlement data. Right now, I don't want to store it in Appzillon server, but wherein I'm going to consume it from third party. Still, I can ignore the data model what is being maintained by the Appzillon server.
Yes, very much. See, even the authentication and all other entitlement, there is always an option to override, and then you can just directly go to the backend service. You can go. You need not use the data model that is defined by the Appzillon in this case.
So as a minimal thing, like can I keep the user detail also from the Appzillon data model?
Yes, only thing is that the session will be maintained by the Appzillon server. The user details you can skip it across. You can use your own authentication mechanism and write a custom code to write your own authentication mechanism, and only the session will be managed by the Appzillon server.
We said it is a restless services, right? Restless applications we are maintaining.
Yeah.
So then why we need a session?
No, if you require to have a session, you have to maintain a session between when the session is starting, when the session is ending. If you have to manage a session, you can use your Appzillon session management.
So still I can go with an SSO based application where Appzillon session also not required.
Yes, very much yes.
So in that case, I don't want to maintain anything on the Appzillon data model. So I can keep still an empty data model. I can continue to integrate with the third-party application and proceed, right?
That's correct. As Namit mentioned, can be used as a pipe. You can use Appzillon in this case.
Okay. Thanks, Aswin.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
You said you've got Appzillon working on the browsers as well, on say Windows and other laptops kind of devices. Okay. Now, in that, what would be the technology using which you would be rendering the presentation layer?
We rely on HTML5, CSS, JavaScript. So as long as the browsers support HTML5, we are generally good and we'll be able to support it.
Okay. It is pure HTML5 or anything which supports HTML5, something like Angular or
No.
Yeah, Kumar, please go ahead. Kumar, if you're speaking, we're not able to hear you.
See as of now we are planning for September.
Kumar, sorry, I am not able to hear you at all. I don't know if the problem is at my end.
Okay.
No, I can't hear either.
Oh, I think maybe my internet is bad. It's
No problem.
Is it okay? I will type in the chat. Okay, the high level is that we support Angular as of now. We support in the latest version of the Appzillon. We support Angular. We are also planning to add React in the later part of this year. Probably I'll just add my comment in the chat also, just to those who are not able to hear. Probably they can get the more information.
Thanks, Kumar. Thanks.
What version of Angular are you on? Is it Angular JS or Angular 1.3?
We are on Angular, no, Angular JS. We are not planning to extend. We are on Angular 7, which will extend to the latest version as well.
Sorry, what was that? Which version?
Angular 7.
Okay.
We are not continuing on the Angular JS. We are only supporting on Angular 7 onwards.
Any further questions, or shall we move on to the next section?
Please move on.
All right. Okay. So largely we have been talking through this. This is more of a high-level architecture diagram that you see. So this is typically the device tier. So you have the apps getting downloaded onto your mobile, and then we also leverage on the local database of the device at times. So let's say non-financial transactions, and if you want to support offline mode where you don't really have network capability at that point in time, so you can actually do a store in the local device, the SQLite database that comes with the device, because we expose plugins to use that. And then once availability of network is there, you can push the transaction back to the server. So basically you can sync up the transaction, and then you can knock off the transaction from the local device as well. So from the device, this is the middleware that we're talking about. And the middleware is essentially a RESTful service. That's why the communication happens over JSON. We also make use of HTTPS, and we also support encryption. We use AES. Okay. And this middleware also has a data store. So there is database being used here. So the idea here is every single transaction that is initiated from the device is logged as part of the database for audit logging and reporting and so on. Okay, so we can bring out all kinds of analytics as to which user, what device, which IP address, how many Android installs, how many iOS, all of this, how many users are logged in and things like that. Now, once it hits the middleware, it can directly talk to the external system if need be. So let's say there are organizations where there is no ESB as such, and you have yet multiple back office systems, each system having different message exchange pattern and protocol. For example, CRM can be SOAP, core banking can be REST, card management can be ISO, and so on. Even in such a scenario, my middleware takes care of the data transformation bit, wherein the request which is sent as a JSON is transformed into the corresponding endpoint format. The endpoints get maintained here as part of camel context that we use in the middleware. And the JSON, if it's a SOAP service that we're talking to, the JSON gets automatically transformed into XML without the user having to do, the developer having to write any lines of code. So likewise, if it is REST, the JSON is sent as it is. If it is ISO, the JSON gets converted into an ISO format before hitting the external system. So this is when we have to do a point-to-point integration. Let's say the bank has an ESP, then we can directly talk to the ESP instead of talking to the individual systems. So this, at a high level, is the architecture diagram. The same thing has been split here into device and experience tier, and middleware is split as process tier and API tier. And the data store, what I was talking about, is right here. We can talk to code systems or external gateways like payment gateways, SMS gateways, and so on. And the communication can be direct or via an ESP. We briefly touched upon this. So in terms of deployment. What you're trying to ensure here is we try to support as much as open source as possible. So first of all, the Appzillon executable itself, which is installed on the desktops of the developer, that can be on a Windows machine, it can be on a Linux machine, or even on a Mac machine as such. And then the deployable. So what do we get as the executables? Now, let's say if you're building an internet banking kind of an application, then typically I would get a WAR file, which is the application as such, and my middleware, which is again a WAR file, which is RESTful based. So all of these can be hosted on any of these application servers that you see, which is WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss, or Apache. Okay, and in the device tier, typically, if it is a mobile application, then you would download it from the App Store. And the versions of Android, iOS typically is for Android, we support 5 and above. For iOS, we support 10 and above. And all standard web browsers, as long as they are HTML5 compliant. When it comes to database, we are good with Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, DB2, Postgre, and MariaDB. So it has to be relational. Okay. This is more towards the deployment architecture. So you can have multiple enterprise systems. You can consume the APIs by the enterprise systems directly or via an ESB. The application server, which is hosting the middleware, as well as in cases of internet banking, the application itself can be clustered. Likewise, the database also can be clustered into active, passive, and so on. The Appzillon admin module WAR file is also hosted as part of the application server. So all of this comes as part of your secure zone. And this is your web server where the reverse proxy is configured, and all the requests coming in from the mobile or the web browser hits the web server first, and from the web server to the reverse proxy, it is redirected to the secure zone and the application server. So this is something around the security which comes out of the box. So basically, when we do any kind of application for banks, security becomes of utmost importance, and these are the various aspects that we cover. So basically, multi-factor authentication, which is what user knows and what user has. So we use the device ID and to figure out which user it is, and the password as authentication initially, and then the second factor could be an OTP and send out to the phone, email, etc. Then you have multi-level session validation. So we create a session, the session timeout, etc. is configurable. You can use the admin module to configure the session. And we also generate request keys, which needs to be piggybacked for every request that is being sent to prevent any kind of MIM and session hijacking kind of attacks. OWASP vulnerabilities, these libraries are included as part of the middleware. So typical OWASP vulnerabilities are taken care of. Secure data transmission. So we generally send data between the device tier and the web server over HTTPS. Over and above HTTPS, we also have support for encryption. So AES is what we use. And comprehensive audit logs. So like I said, every single request that originates from the device is logged as part of the database. So which user, what device, when was the transaction, what was the request, what was the response, all of this can be seen via the graphical interface using admin module. So the idea is tomorrow if the customer calls up the bank and said, I did a transaction on a specific date and I don't know this, I didn't get a success response and I don't know the status of the transaction. So you can just go down to the admin module. You can actually look at select query by the user. The actual request payload and the response payload for the specific interfaces can be seen. In the database, it is stored as an encrypted format, but in the GUI, it is decrypted and shown it to the end user, which is the IT back office. Then fine-grained access control. So like I said, we not only do authentication, we also do authorization. So authentication refers to just the password check, and authorization refers to the role the user has, and based on the entitlements, the corresponding set of screens are made available for the end user. Then we also have some bit of static code analyzer. So basically, you want to profile the code even before it is deployed, then Appzillon facilitates it by integrating with third-party static code analysis. So this, in a nutshell, is security features that we provide out of the box. And over and above this, we also have periodic audits from people like KPMG and so on. So they basically evaluate the platform and also the digital banking assets to give inputs on the security, and any findings as such gets retrofited back into the platform. These are the various touch points that basically we have integrated and interfaced with. So core banking, we have worked with FlexCube, Finacle, Profile, and T24 is not in the list, but also T24. These are the various gateways that we have already interfaced with the CRM systems and regulatory authorities. So ideally, one of the, key aspects, if you look at it, is the integration and the interfacing with third-party systems. Now, since we have automated it to the extent possible, and we also have integration adapters built in as part of the middleware, integration actually is the sweet spot for us. So we can even do an apple-to-apple comparison where, given a service, how quickly can we actually integrate and have the app up and running? So that is where Appzillon is a game changer in that sense. You can have as many APIs to interface with. Ideally, the time taken to integrate and interface because of the data transformation capabilities and automation becomes very easy for the developers. And even if we do an apple-to-apple comparison, we can save as much as 50% time for a typical integration that is required. Yeah, so the key features is what we will, nothing but the explanation for what I showed here, which is this. So this anyways, we plan to cover as part of the next 4-5 days. We will walk you through the UI UX, the embedded simulators, the localization capability, which means I can have the app in as many languages with minimal effort and things like that. The workflow capabilities, the extensibility framework. So let's say you want to integrate with third-party frameworks to introduce new widgets or to introduce new feature functionality, how easily Appzillon allows it to be incorporated. Or let's say we have a set of plugins, about 70-80 odd plugins which comes out of the box. And let's say you want to create your own plugins, the native extensibility feature that we provide, the admin module, offline capability, all of this, including the micro app architecture and integration, is what we plan to cover subsequently once Yagna gets into the IDE and show it to you. So that is the next section. It's all a little more English to all of these features, which we will cover as part of the next 4-5 days. But before I take you to the next section where Yagna gets in and shows you the platform and starts with the actual training, where you can see him building an app using the platform, talking about various functionalities. Wanted to check if we have further questions around the architecture and security.
Ashwin, Sudarshan here.
Yeah.
Are you enabled on Docker and Kubernetes kind of environments?
Kumar?
Yeah, yes, I'll take it. No, actually, ours, whatever the output that is currently output from the ID is then is a WAR file. Currently, we have done a small POC on Docker containerization, but not on Kubernetes. But current existing version of ID is an WAR file output, but on top of that, we have done some custom script to create as a Docker output, but not the container level, but not the Kubernetes. But obviously, you can just put Docker inside the Kubernetes as well.
So it will be the responsibility of the consumer to have this tested. In fact, it being a war, I don't see an issue.
Correct. No, actually, we thought of adding it as part of the ID itself, but there are little challenges there where how do you want to make the content under stuff, which is more of an scripting things. So we want to keep it outside, but we are also exploring, is there an option to plug it inside the ID itself to create a container output? It's still we are exploring further, but at this point in time, we generate a WAR output.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Ashwin, I think we said encrypted data storage. So are we storing each and every data in database as encryptor, or is it optional where I can configure and ignore the encryption data?
Okay, when I say data that is stored, there are two parts to it. One is it is not something like an account balance that is stored. It's just the request and the response payload, which is encrypted and stored. And the idea behind that is for troubleshooting, for any kind of balances and fund transfer details and all that. We will always rely on the core banking system because that is going to be the single source of truth. This is more in terms of encrypt and storing the request response payload, more from an audit logging and troubleshooting perspective. Do I have a feature to turn it off? That is something I'll have to check with the product. Kumar?
At each interface level, I mean, whatever the communication that you're making, you can turn on or off the logging feature. And so, let's say, for example, some requests I don't want to log in, you can turn off the logging feature where only the transaction detail will get logged. The request and response payload will not get logged. And then request and response payload also is getting encrypted and stored, which the developer has an option to make it enable or not for each interface. Does that answer the question?
Yes. So we support payload encryption, not a sensitive field encryption. In that case, if I see payload encryption, obviously it lead to each and every request getting encrypted, right? The complete body is payload is encrypted. So do we still support a sensitive field encryption where I think I wanted to encrypt very specific field, wherein rest of the field I just wanted to keep it as raw data?
No. We support the complete payload encryption, and it is at the application layer you can write a custom script to enable the each field level encryption.
Okay. So are we still complying with the GDPR, where I can take care of all the security measures?
Yes, because we where the data that we store as the information at the user level, where user ID level on the session level we store, and we also ensure that the end-to-end encryption is supported, and also the it's not only the protocol level encryption, we also support at the application level encryptions. I think we have gone through the multiple VAPTs and other stuff. I think we are not got any open issues as such.
Okay, thanks.
Hi Kumar, this is Shubhajit. So what we understand for the internet banking, there will be a WAR file which will be deployed along with that your middleware layer. And for Android and iPhone, it will be a straight APK and IPA file. So so my question is, in case of cluster environment, so how you will maintain the session? Will it be active or active passive for internet banking?
No, it can be how we highly recommend it as an active session. We highly recommend, but based on the deployment architecture of your need, we can make it as active passive as well. But we highly recommend as an active environment. And if it is an N cluster, we go for N+1 cluster and make it as an active.
But then how you will be maintaining the session? Like in which container layer it will be maintained? It will be having like in case of internet banking, let's say. So we have a 2 VAR basically deployed, right? So you will be maintaining the session only on that your middleware layer, and
there will be a session between the browser and the web and the backend Appzillon server will be there. In case of an Android iOS, there will be Appzillon so there is a mobile application to the Appzillon server will be there. So there are the multi-session things has been handled properly.
Okay, so you mean to say active is very much possible, is it?
Yes, very much possible.
Okay. And
I
another
highly
question.
recommend the active because of obviously for
Yeah, of course. I mean, all banks they will be looking for the active only. Now another question is we are seeing all the request response payload will be stored in the database. So you have this archival and purging solution available?
So come again.
Do you have the archival and purging solution for that particular storage?
Yes, we have the archival and purging things. We have an admin application. We also provide the option to run jobs and other stuff. We also provide the scriptings to do the archival and purging policies are given, where you can move to the historical database. From the historical database, you can clean up based on your purging policy. You can do those things. We provide as a script, and that script will be run as part of the admin application itself.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is, will there be any check possible? For example, like only Android I want certain functionality, only iPhone I want something. So this kind of check is possible?
No, currently we allowed to choose the features at common for both Android and iOS. If you want to create different thing, probably you have to create as a two different projects. You have to create the application and create your APK or IPA.
What I mean to say is, like, for example, Android, we have the back button functionality. So I want to have something on the back button, which I don't need for the iPhone. So how will I handle that?
Yeah, that you can handle. But you because you have the JavaScript functions for back and other stuff, which you can handle it across in your code, and that's very much possible. I was thought about the feature wise. If you want to, I want to use camera in Android. I don't want to use camera in iOS. If you want to have that kind of features, not want to plug in that features as part of the thing. But in that case, I was talking about this. But this kind of thing, anyway, there is no back button is not there in iOS. Anyway, it will not be applicable. In that case, it is more straightforward. The platform allows you to handle the events that are coming from the device to your JavaScript.
Okay, so question was not only the back button. Like, for example, even let's say I want certain field to be enabled only for Android. So that check will it be possible in the roadmap?
That is basically when you're designing the applications, you can decide and then accordingly customize, like previously where Ashwin was explaining about the customizing the features based on the role and other stuff. In the same way, you can do the customization based on the device. You can do a customization at the field level or at the screen level. You can customize, or you can have a different screens for Android, iOS. You can design. I think when you see the Appzillon IDE provides you to create multiple screens. You can, for the same feature, you can get multiple screens, and based on the platform, you can choose which screen to display and other stuff you can customize to. It provides a lot more flexibility for you to have different level of customization for at the device level as well.
Okay.
And you can go at one level where how do you want to do for landscape versus portrait. That level also you can do.
So you mean to say even the mobile app will support in portrait, landscape both?
Yeah, by default supports. If you want to have a differential screens, you can still go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Madhu here. I have one associated question. See, one of the challenges we've seen with hybrid app was the support beyond Android 5 and above. When you presented your stack, also you're saying the same. We've seen quite a few Chinese phones like Huawei and all come with custom built Android version, which is below 5. Okay. One of the challenges we see with customers is they want all the devices to be supported, in which case it becomes a challenge. So your platform also has the same problem, because you're saying you'll support above Android 5. Let's say if there are phones in the market which offer custom Android solution below version 5, does it not work even if you use this, or is there a solution available?
See, currently what is there in the App Store is what we go with, where the less than Android 5 is very minimal percentage. But technically we can support, I think 4.2 or 4.4, I forgot it. Above we can support, below that it will be a challenge. But just to have a claim, we also put Android 5 and other stuff. But if there is no major changes, we can still explore on the case-to-case basis. But that has to be taken as a case-to-case basis, and then we need to see maybe some of the plugins may not work, like some of the features that what we have may not work because of the compatible issue and other stuff that we need to check on case-to-case basis. But we can still give a try for between Android 4.1 or 2 and above. Between 5 we can still give a try, but still that needs to be purely on case-to-case basis and purely on technical feasibility. If it is if there is no restriction as such, I think we can still give it to work.
Okay. Because from what I understood, the WebOS version is a challenge. But anyways, just wanted to understand your thought about it. It's okay. Right now, it's
recently the Android is also getting evolved from Android to, as you know, Android to Android X package, and so there are a lot of changes are happening and other stuff in the Android world also, even in the iOS world also. iOS is a ruled out. For them it is very clear things, and what Android currently, the web container that we support is compatible to Android 5 and even to the older versions. But there may be some challenges will be there with respect to the core platform integration code. May have some issues will be there. And I hope these things, whatever they have, the custom device will be there. It's mainly for their internal users or to the limited user application, which we can look at it. We also have some kind of customer space where they have certain custom built devices are there where we support those applications. That's the reason I said it has to be taken on the case-to-case basis.
Okay, sure.
Hi Kumar, Vishal this side.
Yes, we shall go ahead, please.
There are most of the cases which a requirement comes from the client where we need to develop or customize the native functionality with respect to the iOS and Android. So I just wanted to understand what is the scope for that with respect to the Appzillon.
Can just give a native functionality, can just give a small example so that probably my response will be, before maybe I'll just probably
I'll take example of Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, that is respect to the iPhone and Android.
Okay, so as we speak, I think we have already done the integration for Apple Pay and Samsung Pay. We've already done the integration for Apple Pay and Samsung Pay. So since we would have seen in the initial thing, our Android, iOS, we have a lot of plugins which are all native application. So we have done a lot of third-party SDK integrations. We have done it across, be it a third-party or be it an interface to the existing Apple or Android, be it an biometric authentications or integrated with the camera features or accessing any other sensor that are available you want to capture across, which is very much possible. We also have an option to integrate with the third-party SDKs. Those is still possible. We still do, and only the rendering portion of it is what we are using the web container. Apart from that, we have a clear bridges there to integrate with the native code.
Okay, so you want to say that in spite we don't have any, if we don't have any existing one, we can go ahead and develop it?
Yes, very much.
Okay, there won't be any dependency of the rendering of the native UI to the web UI?
No, it's basically the web also provides you the bridge to talk to the native layer, which is what we have well done it across. So if it is going to be a pure SDK integrations and a full screen integration, should not be an issue to integrate and take it forward.
Okay. One more question. With respect to the existing, whatever you have developed, the plugins and all, can we go and customize those plugins?
No. Customization of those plugins are not provided. Those things are being currently done by IFC team, which you may have to raise it to us, which we will customize and give it to you.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Hi, this is Syed. I'm having one question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Syed.
We know that every now and then Apple and Android releases new versions of their OS. Now we have Android 10 like that. Then in no time it will be 12, 13, 14. So how fast is market ready to market for the app from Appzillon? Like that, customer won't have any issues, and we support the latest releases from Android and iOS.
Right. So the way we do it is we start with the beta version. So let's say iOS, for example, has come up with 13 or some other version. So what happens is they release the beta version. So we have a dedicated set of people who work specifically on these containers that we call Android and iOS. So we start with the beta version, see what is being released as part of the new version, and see what APIs get depreciated and what new gets added. And accordingly, we try to keep the containers ready. If it is a small changes, let's say few APIs have come in and all that, we give a 30-day SLA to our customers, saying that within 30 days we'll be having the latest version upgrade. And also we advise the customers in terms of any impact that might have. So for example, there is an API which was used earlier as part of app development, and now it's been depreciated. So that piece of communication we give it to the customers, asking them to be ready to make changes to the application. So 30 days is the SLA that we provide typically for small version upgrades. But if the version has completely drastically changed, for example, let's say something was on Objective-C and now something the new version is coming on a different language altogether, then it takes slightly higher time than 30 days.
So based on your past experiences, like from Android 6, 7, 8, 9, from customers' perspective, is there any changes required once the app is developed, or Appzillon will automatically take care about it once it gets updated?
See, that also, I mean, if you look at past experiences, I think there have been specific incidents. I can't quote, or maybe Kumar or somebody.
I'll take up the question.
Yeah.
Okay. See, most of the time the versions have the backward compatibles are there, so we don't need to release a patch for the new OS. But we have seen, I could remember in the thing is I could have seen number one instance where the old application did not work with the new, especially the reason was on the iOS, I think 13.1 or something was there, where we had to release a patch. I think I mean, in this case, the customer did not come and ask for the patch. We tested using the beta version and we found that there is a backward compatibility issue was there, and we released the patch much earlier. So we used to, as Ashwin explained, we used to go and get the beta and the live versions. We start testing our, we have a few sample apps out there. We start testing our application just to ensure the basic things are working fine. In case if there is a issues there, we do release a patch for those applications. But most of the time it will work, but sometimes we used to make a patch.
Okay. And again, I'm having one more question regarding to security. Is Appzillon will be taking care about like super access, root user access, which gain access to the bank's application deployed on mobile and can replicate, or a malicious code can be added, or can have different application which will try to imitate that it is from bank application and hijack the user's request and responses like that.
Right. So, the way it works is while we bring in a lot of security aspects as part of the platform, when we do a customer engagement, let's say it is a mobile banking or internet banking application, what we also try to do is at the end of the project, we ask the bank to hire any vendor of their choice to do a VAPT, vulnerability assessment penetration testing. So the idea behind this is security is an evolving thing. It keeps changing. So there are new ways in which people find to, hack into and inject malicious code and things like that. So that is where we try to have the additional set of validation from the bank side as well by engaging a third-party vendor. And any findings, that the bank has or the vendor has is fixed free of cost, and also it gets retrofitted as part of the product. base product. So the idea is while we have standard security features brought in, we also validate it in terms by engaging third-party vendors. When we do an implementation, we mandate a VAPT to be done to arrest any such findings and retrofit the changes as part of the platform. So it keeps evolving. As you know, there's no standard that once I've done security, it is done. There won't be any more hacks whatsoever. So since it is an evolving thing, this is how we address it.
Okay, one more last question. In one of the slides, it is mentioned that static code analyzer is being integrated with Appzillon. So
right.
Whether a dynamic code analyzer will also be integrated, or there are any plans, or it is already present?
Kumar?
Sorry, come again. Sorry, I missed out. Static code analyzer.
Static code analyzers is what we have already integrated with. Is there a plan to bring in dynamic code analyzers as well? Is the question.
Not really at this point of view. We are not thought about the dynamic code analyzer. Probably if you not exactly getting the real use cases. Probably if you can just throw some light, probably I can just think about it and let you know.
It's like a man in the middle attack, like when the request is bit fired from the device. So instead of going to the legitimate server, it can be hijacked in between, and it can impersonate that the request is coming from a valid app instead of other sources.
No, I think those things we already handled across. Okay, so we have you cannot change the content in between. Man in the middle is not possible because the end-to-end security and also the hashing and other stuff ensure that if any changes in the packet, it will not get processed in the Appzillon server. Also, we manage the nonce, we call it as client nonce and server nonce, and then once that is originated, once that is processed, a further request from the same nonce will not get processed. All the security parameters has been already handled.
So how can you ensure that the app which is sending the request is bank's own app? Because anyone can extract the app and rebuild it, repackage it, and send the request. So how you will ensure?
So, no, once when you do a repackaging, rebuilding, that time the app will not work. We also have a check in our application, and if anything that has got tampered in our application, so that will not get work. So we have certain checks on the mobile application side as well. If anything that got tampered into our application will not work.
So anything present at the server end to check the tampering?
No, we send certain key value to check to the server side to validate whether that is getting tampered or not. So certain condition checks we send to the server to check that value, and also to ensure that we, as mentioned, the others, CNONs and other stuff also we take care. If you alter anything in the and also the application will not work on the router device.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Kumar, if I may suggest, we can possibly look to have a small session in the coming days where we talk about the roadmap of the platform. While what they get to see is what we have right now, and they get trained on what is being available. Let us also show them what is coming in the next few months as part of the platform roadmap.
Yeah, sure. But when we are in the office, we have showed them. Okay, probably we can just also maybe later last sessions in this week.
Once we finish through the sessions, probably at the end of the 4th, 5th day or whatever, we can look to show them what is there as part of the roadmap as well.
Yeah, sure.
Any further questions that we have? Okay, so the tech sessions where Yarki would get started with opening the platform, showing it to you how things are done. while the initial idea was a classroom session, considering this is remote, it may not be possible to do a hands-on for all the participants involved. Having said that, what the way we have planned it is in the agenda, like you see, there are various things that we want to cover. So Yagyu would be opening up Appzillon and building an app, showing you the various modalities.
Ashwin, today we have
And since today we are almost at the back end of the session, we're about 10 minutes. I'm sorry? Kumar, I couldn't hear you. Sorry, you're breaking up. Or am I breaking up?
Yeah, I don't know which line is bad. Anyway, today we have only 10 minutes left out. I think it's better that we start the from tomorrow.
Correct. So I was just setting the context
Okay.
accordingly. So since we only have 10 minutes left for today's session, tomorrow onwards we will start the actual walkthrough where we'll open the platform, we will build an actual use case demonstrating the various list items mentioned as part of the agenda. And since we only have 10 minutes, I think we will start this activity from tomorrow. Would that be okay? Any further inputs?
I think Ashwin, if there are any further queries we can take up, or even offline we can take up any queries that are there.
Sure. All right. So if there are no further questions, let's call it a day today, and look forward to see you all join the session tomorrow at 10:30.
Okay. Thanks, Ashwin. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a safe day. Bye.
Bye.